They say he lives in the foundations, a twin born with scales and a hunger for more than just secrets. The Robinsons' Mall Snake Man. Is he still down there? To understand the Snake Man, we have to go back to the early 1990s. This was a pivotal time for the Philippines. The country was emerging from a dictatorship, and the era of the mega mall was beginning. Shopping malls weren't just stores, they were the new cathedrals of consumption. And at the center of this was John Gokongwei Jr., the tycoon behind the Robinsons' empire. The legend starts with a birth. It is whispered, never confirmed, always whispered, that when Gokongwei's daughter Robina was born, she wasn't alone. She had a twin. But while Robina was a normal human infant, her brother was different. He was born with the body of a massive python but the head and upper torso of a human man. In Filipino culture, there is a long-standing superstition regarding kambal na ahasas, or snake twins. It is believed that being born with a snake twin is a sign of immense future wealth. But it comes with a terrifying burden. The snake must be hidden and it must be fed. Imagine the scene, a high-security hospital wing, the frantic silence of doctors paid for their discretion, and the realization that the heir to a multi-billion peso fortune has a monster for a brother. Instead of a nursery, the legend says they built a sanctuary not in a house, but in the foundations of their greatest project, Robinson's Galleria in Ortigas. The mall was designed not just for shoppers but as a cage, a sprawling, multi-level labyrinth where the Snake Man could roam the ventilation shafts and the hidden corridors. Why did this story take such a hold? In the 90s, the Philippines was a place where the gap between the ultra-rich and the poor was widening into a canyon. To the average citizen, the wealth of the Gokongweis felt supernatural. How could one family own so much? The human mind seeks patterns and explanations for the inexplicable. If you couldn't understand their business acumen, you could certainly understand a blood debt to a serpent. People began to point at the architecture of the mall itself. Have you ever noticed how malls of that era have those strange circular layouts and massive, winding central columns? To a conspiracy theorist, those weren't just design choices. They were pathways for a massive reptilian body to move between floors. The Snake Man wasn't just a hidden relative, he was the Anito, or the spirit of the mall. He was the reason for the success, and as the mall grew, so did his hunger. We have to look at the psychological climate of Manila at the time. The city was recovering from the 1990 earthquake, a trauma that left everyone on edge. When the mall opened its doors shortly after, it represented a new modern world. But beneath that modernity, the old superstitions remained. The Snake Man is the perfect bridge between the two, a creature of folklore living inside a monument of capitalism. It was the birth of a legend that would eventually involve movie stars disappearing shoppers, and a fear so real that it actually impacted the mall's revenue. But the most terrifying part wasn't the snake itself. It was the mechanism the mall allegedly used to feed him. If the basement was the Snake Man's lair, the fitting rooms were his dining table. This is the part of the legend that kept an entire generation of Filipino women from trying on clothes alone. The trapdoor theory. The story goes like this. You are at Robinson's Galleria, looking for a dress for a party. You find something you like and head to the fitting rooms. You enter a stall, lock the door, and begin to undress. You feel safe. You are in a brightly lit, modern environment. But then, you step on a specific tile or a certain trigger is pulled from a remote location. The floor beneath your feet doesn't just give way, it's a precision-engineered trapdoor. Before you can scream, you are dropped down a smooth, vertical chute. You slide through the darkness, past the electrical wiring and the plumbing, straight into the sub-basement levels, the forbidden floors that don't appear on any elevator button. And there, waiting in the damp, cool air, is the Snake Man. This specific detail, the trapdoor, transformed the story from a weird family secret into a public safety crisis. People claimed that beautiful young women were the preferred prey. There was a logic to it, according to the whispers. The snake twin was lonely and needed companionship, or perhaps his human side craved the beauty he could never possess. In the pre-internet era, these stories traveled through radio puak, word of mouth. Housewives would tell their daughters, don't go to Robinson's, or if you do, don't go into the fitting rooms. It reached a point where people would actually bring a friend to stand outside the stall, and they would keep talking to each other. If the person inside stopped responding for even a second, the friend would bang on the door. Can you imagine the atmosphere? A place of leisure turned into a place of tactical surveillance. But let's look at the why of the trapdoor. Mechanically, it would be an engineering nightmare to maintain a series of trapdoors in a functioning shopping mall without anyone, janitors, security, contractors, ever noticing. Yet, the belief was so strong because it tapped into a very real fear: the loss of agency. When you are in a fitting room, you are at your most vulnerable. You are partially clothed, confined in a small space, and isolated. The legend also suggests a darker collaboration between the corporate world and the monstrous. The idea that a company would sacrifice its own customers to satisfy a family secret is the ultimate expression of corporate distrust. It's the Sweeney Todd of the Philippines, but instead of meat pies, the end result was a billionaire's blessing. Even today, if you walk into some of the older sections of the mall, you'll see women glancing at the floor of the fitting room before they step in. They might knock on the tiles to see if they sound hollow. It's a collective trauma that hasn't fully healed. We're going to talk about the most famous victim of this trapdoor in a moment. But first, we have to address the Snake Man's role not as a predator, but as a source of luck. Because in Southeast Asian lore, a snake isn't always a demon sometimes. It's a gold mine. In the heart of Southeast Asian folklore, the snake is rarely just a biological entity. It is a symbol of duality, of healing and poison, of rebirth and death. But in the Philippines, there is a very specific iteration of this myth that predates any modern shopping mall: the ahas na ginto, or the golden snake. This is where the Robinsons legend stops being just a scary story and starts being a cultural autopsy. You see, when the Gokongwei family built their empire, they weren't just fighting competitors. They were navigating a culture deeply rooted in animism, and the belief that extreme wealth requires a supernatural pact. The legend suggests that the Snake Man wasn't a curse, but a lucky charm. In many Filipino-Chinese traditions, having a snake in the house, specifically a twin snake, is believed to bring an endless flow of money. It's called a blood debt. The logic is as ancient as it is terrifying. For the vaults to remain full, the spirit of the house must be fed. In the context of Robinson's Galleria, the Snake Man was the literal manifestation of this greed. People whispered that the reason the Gokongwais were so successful, the reason they could compete with the other titans like the Sai family or the Ayalas, was because they had a secret advantage coiled in the dark. Think about the architecture of power. When you look at the floor plans of these massive malls, they are designed to keep you inside. They are mazes of consumerism. To the folk mind, this isn't just about retail psychology. It's about a sacrifice. The Snake Man represents the padugo. Padugo is a traditional ritual where the blood of an animal, usually a chicken or a pig, is spilled on the foundations of a new building to appease the spirits of the land and ensure the structure doesn't crumble. But for a project as massive as a multi-city mall empire, a chicken wouldn't suffice. The legend grew to claim that the Snake Man required beautiful women, because their vitality was the only thing that could sustain a creature that was half man, half god, and all monster. This taps into the deep-seated class resentment that existed in Manila during the late 20th century. The ultra-rich were seen as almost alien, living in fortified mansions and moving in tinted window SUVs. If they were that successful, they must be doing something blasphemous behind closed doors. The Snake Man became a metaphor for the predatory nature of capitalism. He was the consumer who consumed the consumers. Every time someone disappeared in a city of millions, a runaway, a victim of crime, a lost soul, the urban legend gave people a place to put that disappearance. They weren't just gone, they were in the basement, they were part of the blood debt. We also have to consider the twin aspect. In Filipino culture, a kambal na ahas is often thought to share the soul of its human sibling. If Robina Gokongwei was the public face of the empire, intelligent, successful, and visible, then her snake twin was the shadow self. He was the hidden cost of her public success. This duality is a recurring theme in our archives. We want the wealth, but we are terrified of the price. We want the modern mall, but we fear the ancient spirit that might still claim the land it was built on. When you walk through those corridors today, you aren't just walking through a mall. You are walking through a monument to a pact that many believe is still being paid in full. But what happens when the pact involves one of the most famous faces in the country? That's when the legend moved from the shadows of the basement to the bright lights of the silver screen. If there is one name that is forever shackled to the Robinsons' Snake Man, it is Alice Dixson. In the early 90s, Alice was the it girl of Philippine cinema. She was ethereal, beautiful, and seemingly untouchable, until the legend claimed she had been touched by the monster. This is the moment the urban legend transitioned from a localized Manila myth into a national obsession. The story goes that Alice was in a Robinson's Galleria fitting room when the floor gave way. She allegedly fell into the pit, saw the creature, and was only saved because of her status or a stroke of incredible luck. But the real meat of the story isn't the escape, it's the silence. For years, the rumor was that Alice Dixson was paid a staggering amount of money to never speak of the incident. Some versions even claimed she was threatened with the end of her career or worse. This created a fascinating psychological phenomenon in the Philippines. Every time Alice appeared on screen, people weren't just looking at her acting, they were looking for signs. Was she traumatized? Was she wearing high-collared shirts to hide marks? The silence of a celebrity is a powerful vacuum that the public fills with their darkest imaginations. In 1990, Alice Dixson finally addressed the rumors, but in the most bizarre way possible, she denied them. But in the world of conspiracy theories, a denial is just a confirmation in a different font. The public didn't believe her. They claimed the real Alice was dead and that the woman on television was a double. They claimed her wealth was a payout from the Gokong lice. This is a classic example of the Mandela effect. Before we even had a name for it, thousands of Filipinos will swear to you, to this day, that they remember seeing a news report where Alice was crying, or that they read a specific tabloid headline that has since disappeared from the archives. The power of this specific branch of the legend lies in its intersection with showbiz culture. In the Philippines, celebrities are like royalty, and their lives are public property. By dragging Alice Dixson into the Snake Man's lair, the legend made the monster real. It wasn't just some anonymous shopper anymore. It was someone we knew. It bridged the gap between the supernatural and the evening news. It also served as a cautionary tale. No matter how famous or beautiful you are, the elite and their monsters can still reach you. Fast forward to 2020, in a stroke of marketing genius, or perhaps a long-awaited act of reclamation, Alice Dixson appeared in a commercial for Robinson's Malls. In the ad, she walks into a fitting room, looks at the camera, and pokes fun at the legend. She even encounters a CGI version of the Snake Man. While many saw this as a fun, meta moment, the hardcore believers saw it as a sinister cover-up, finally coming full circle. They argued that only after 30 years, when the original monster was perhaps dead or moved, could they finally joke about it. This brings us to the core of the Alice Dixson chapter, the durability of a lie. Or is it a lie? When a story is told by millions for 3 decades, it develops its own gravity. It becomes a functional truth. Whether Alice was actually in that pit doesn't matter as much as the fact that the entire nation believed she was. The silence of Alice Dixson wasn't just about a hidden snake. It was about the collective voice of a people who felt that the truth was always being hidden from them by those in power. And as the 90s faded into the digital age, the Snake Man didn't disappear, he just changed his skin. As we move into the 21st century, the world has changed. We have smartphones, 24/7 surveillance, and social media. You'd think a giant snake man living in a basement would be impossible to hide in the age of TikTok. But urban legends are like viruses. They mutate to survive the environment. The Robinson's Mall Snake Man hasn't been debunked by technology. He's been amplified by it. He has evolved from a whispered secret into a creepypasta, a digital phantom that haunts the corners of the internet. In 2019, the patriarch of the Robinsons empire, John Gokongwei Jr., passed away at the age of 93. For many, this was the end of an era, but for the legend trippers, it was a moment of intense speculation. What happens to the snake twin when the father dies? Does the blood debt expire? Or does the monster inherit the throne? The death of the tycoon brought a surge of new sightings. People began posting leaked photos of the basement levels, most of them clearly faked. But the engagement they received was astronomical. We still want him to be there. Why do we cling to the Snake Man? Why, in 2026, am I still talking about a 1990s mall myth? It's because the Snake Man represents the liminal spaces of our modern life. Malls are transitional places. They are neither home nor work. At night, they become dead zones. Vast empty halls that feel like they shouldn't exist without people. The legend gives a face to that unease. It tells us that the reason we feel watched in an empty corridor is because we are being watched. The Snake Man also serves as a permanent critique of the Philippine oligarchy. As long as there is a massive divide between the mall owners and the mall workers, there will be a monster in the basement. He is the physical embodiment of the secrets that the wealthy keep. He is the human cost of every billion-peso profit. We live in a world where corporate transparency is often just a facade. The Snake Man is the truth that stays behind the curtain, shedding his skin but never his nature. As you walk through Robinson's Galleria today, or any mega mall for that matter, I want you to pay attention. Notice the vents. Notice the way the air changes temperature in certain hallways. Notice the staff-only doors that never seem to open. We like to think we've outgrown these superstitions, but they are woven into the very concrete of our cities. The Snake Man is a reminder that no matter how much we polish the surface, there is always something primal, something hungry, and something ancient lurking beneath the floorboards. So, the next time you are in a fitting room and you feel that slight tremor in the floor, don't just assume it's the subway or a passing truck. Take a look at the tiles. Knock on the walls. Because according to the archives, some twins are born to lead empires, and others are born to wait in the dark. I'm Krista, and this has been a descent into the Robinson's Mall mystery. Stay curious, keep your eyes on the shadows, and remember, not everything that is hidden wants to be found. I'll see you in the next archive. Keep blasphemous, folks.